Hello, you. It's been a while since we got to talk again. However, there was a very good reason for that. I was a bit busy tying down some loose ends, in more ways than one. But anyways, it's been 3 years since we met each other. Just think about that for a few seconds. We've known each other for 3 long years. I hope it's as important to you as it is to me. It was the perfect time for me to end all the suffering that we've had to go through all these years. You're probably wondering what I mean by that. Well, allow me to take the time to tell you, as well as reminisce about how we met. I was alone in my own little world. Life was rather dull and nothing interesting ever happened. I felt a bit depressed, hiding it behind a mask of happiness. I was playing Little Big Planet too, just looking for people to play with or to show my creations off to. Eventually, I ran into you and a couple of other people. You didn't stick out that much. You were honestly just someone else for me to possibly show my creations off to. When the others had left, however, I showed off some of the music I had created, and it seemed like you were actually interested with it. You didn't really talk to me since you didn't have a mic at the time, but it was good to see that there was someone who actually liked something that I had made. We quickly became friends and showed off various things to each other. Soon, you turned on your mic and finally began to speak. As soon as you said hi, I put on my mic and we both began to chat away about what we both liked and hated. I knew that I was in love when everything you said you liked was exactly what I had liked. It was almost as if we had been made for one another. We both loved video games, had recently gotten into creepypasta. We even had similar personalities. However, you were a lot more shy than I was. I just didn't like to talk in general. Overall, we both knew that we had found a best friend and possibly even a lover in each other. The world was now a much brighter place for me, and I actually felt like I mattered to someone. One night, while we were talking on Little Big Planet, you had finally begun to talk about your family. For some reason, it was a topic that you had been avoiding for quite a while. I was constantly trying to find out what made you not want to talk about them. If I had known what you were going to say, I wouldn't have kept begging you to talk about them. Your mom was a very nice woman. She didn't she didn't bother me at all. In fact, I would say that you were lucky to have someone like her in your life. But that's pretty much where the good times ended. It was your brother that made me boil. He, along with his girlfriend, had constantly abused you, both physically and mentally. He slapped you around, and she always called you things like a slut, worthless. She should have known that your face was not a mirror. Nevertheless, my heartstrings were getting tugged while you told me all the things that they did. Then, you told me about how your brother had done the unspeakable. You know what I'm talking about, so I won't mention it to save us both a headache. As soon as I heard the words come out of your mouth and flow through my headset, I started to break down. I fell off my bed and lied on the floor, shaking uncontrollably from the revelation. I couldn't believe what I had just heard. I remember you sitting there, trying to calm me down as I suffered through what felt like mental insanity. When it was all over, I had sat up and said thank you for calming me down. However, unknown to you, or anyone else. The old me was gone. Forever. It was then that I had begun my plan to get rid of anyone who would dare harm me in any way. I instantly knew that your brother and this whore of a girlfriend were at number 1 on my wanted list. Things took a massive turn for the worse when 2 years later, one of our friends, Sally, betrayed you in the most heart-wrenching way possible. When you started to talk about it, I could tell that you were hesitating and trying to leave out certain details. However, over the years, you and I found that I had a really nice way with words, to the point where I could almost coax anything out of you. When I heard the extra details about what happened, I knew that our little traitor would be the first to go. I wouldn't be able to destroy the 3 who caused you all this pain until I finally met you in real life. Luckily, my parents were merciful enough to let me go with you and your mom for 2 weeks, the perfect amount of time I need to deal with all 3 of them. And they wouldn't get the quick and painless way out. Oh no. They deserved to feel the pain you felt for almost all your life. You know what they say. If you can't take the pain, don't dish it out. Sally, our little traitor, was the first to go. Before we went to your place, we stopped at her place so you could talk to her and return something that belonged to her. It just so happened that, for some reason, she was alone at her house as well. It seemed that fate was on my side that day. After you were done talking to her, I told you that you and your mom should take a little drive around and have some memories flash through your head. I said I was going to have a talk with Sal and see why she did what she did. You nodded, although reluctantly. You couldn't hear it, but in my mind, the old me was begging you to stop me from doing this. His voice was weak and powerless, though, to the point where I didn't even have a second thought about what I was going to do to her. When you left, I went back into Sal's house and silently locked the door. When I found her, she was sitting on the couch, crying. I found that it was easy to knock her unconscious. All I had to do was make sure that she didn't take another single breath. I snuck up behind her, reached over the couch, and held my hands over her nostrils and mouth. Sal screamed, kicking and yelling about for someone to save her. Unknown to her, however, no one was gonna save her this time. When she finally woke up, she tried to get up. However, I tied her down to her bed and gagged her so that she wouldn't be able to scream. I walked over to her, a butcher knife in hand. Think of everyone you know who has used a knife to kill, both real and fake. You'll then understand why I killed her the way I did. When I showed Sal the knife, her breathing quickened. "Why are you so scared?" I asked her. "If you didn't want this to happen, you really shouldn't have betrayed us." That was the last thing I said to her before I lifted up her shirt and started to slice through her skin. She screamed through the gag as I began to rip off her chest skin with emotionless passion. I pulled the skin down and cut right through the showing muscle. When I did that, Sal's screaming seemed to never stop. I just stood there and stared at her ribcage, no sign of emotion on my face. Soon, though, something within me snapped, and I grabbed her ribs with both hands and tore out several of the bones behind me. I turned into a pure-blooded animal not caring about what happened to my prey as long as they got what they deserved. Soon, I finally saw her beating heart and finally ended her life by ripping it out. I held it in my hands, admiring as it beat rhythmically until it finally slowed down to a screeching halt. I then crushed it, dropped it on the floor, and left, making sure that the door was locked on the inside. I washed all of the blood off of my hands and face before you came back and picked me up. I crossed Sal off in my mind. One down, two to go. Next was your brother's girlfriend, the one who had called you a slut, among other things. She was going to burn and freeze for what she had called you. We had finally arrived at your house a few hours later. It seemed that your brother and his girlfriend were there. What they were doing, I didn't know and didn't care. All I cared about was getting rid of them. You, your mom, and your brother soon left to go somewhere. You would be gone for hours, so this was my one chance. Your brother's girlfriend was sleeping on the couch. I could tell that she was a really hard sleeper. I grabbed her and dragged her to what would soon be her final resting place, the abandoned warehouse a few blocks down. When she had woken up, she ran over to the door of the industrial-sized freezer. She banged on the window furiously, begging for someone to walk out. She banged on the window furiously, begging for someone to let her out. I walked down the shadows and looked at her. She instantly recognized me as that little moron. I snarled and turned on the freezer fans, blowing cold wind into the compartment. She screamed and shivered furiously, saying that she was sorry and begged me to open the doors for her. I walked up to the window, as well as turning up the heat inside a little. She had walked over to the window as well. When she put her face near it, though, I suddenly punched right through the glass and grabbed her neck. She yelped and tried to scream, but it was no use. I snarled at her through gritted teeth. You think you can just insult me and Rose and get away with it? You're taking all of this, you slut! I tossed her backwards and turned the fans down to 0. She got up and tried to run over and jump out the broken window. However, the freezing winds made her slip and slowed her down. Eventually, she stopped moving, almost freezing on the spot. I smirked and opened the door. I went in and poured gasoline all over her half-frozen body. I threw the jerry can in the freezer with her and walked out, closing the door. I then pulled out a match. As I threw it behind me, I said one last thing as I heard her desperately trying to crawl out from her fate. I hope you die in a fire. As I walked out, the smell of smoldering flesh and the sound of screams of debilitating agony filled my nostrils and ears. Last, and certainly not least, was your psycho of a brother. He was not going to die as quickly as Sal and his girlfriend did. Oh no. He caused you the most pain, so he was going to die agonizingly slowly. It was about a day after I had arrived. It was quite an enjoyable time doing everything with you. However, I was really just waiting for my opportunity to strike and end your pain. My waiting had finally come to an end when you and your mom had gone out somewhere. You were apparently going to be gone for most of the day. It was absolutely perfect. I walked into the living room and saw that he was sitting on the couch playing video games. I walked in front of him and he looked up, telling me to move out of his way. No, I said sternly. He then put down the controller and got up into my face. Who do you think you are, you little punk? I'm death, plain and simple. He then threw a punch at me. I ducked and kicked him right in his pride. He screamed and fell on the floor, squirming in pain. I continued to kick him while he was still squirming. Eventually, I knocked him into unconsciousness by curb stomping his face. I dragged him downstairs and into the basement. I had prepared something special for him, something that would keep his mouth shut forever. When he woke up, he was tied to a chair and sitting in a makeshift suit that I had made. The suit had an endoskeleton. However, the endoskeleton was very rusty. If even just a little bit of water got onto it, it would instantly spring open. It was basically an inverse bear trap. I turned on the light and walked over to where he was. My eyes were bloodshot, and I had tears running down my face. Your brother looked at me and tried to get up. I looked at him and frowned. I finally spoke. Why? Why did you do it? He looked at me and asked what he did. I pulled out a water bottle and poured it onto his right arm. The spring lock released and crushed his bones. He screamed in pain, flailing his head around furiously. I grabbed his head and looked him straight in the eye. You know what you did, and you know who you did it to. Now then, why did you do it? He was crying at this point. He knew what he did. He just didn't want to admit it. I saw this and poured more water onto his left arm, releasing the lock and crushing it. He yelled out loud, blubbering and begging for mercy. I looked at him, a broken and shattered being who was crying like an abused child. Oh, the irony was just too good for me. I looked him dead in the eyes and asked one final time, why did you do that to Rose? He shook his head, softly saying that he didn't know why. Then I don't know why I'm doing this. I picked up a bucket of water and dumped it all over him. Every spring lock had released and began to crush every single one of his internal organs. He screamed and begged for me to help him get the suit off, but I just stood there and watched on. I smiled as the locks in his head came loose and pierced into his eyes. I then pulled out a set of clamps attached to a battery and clipped them onto the ears of the suit. I flipped the switch and almost 10,000 volts of electricity ran into the suit. He screamed for me to stop and let him go. He begged for mercy, but I just looked at him before a devilish smirk had crossed my face. Sorry, all out of mercy. I turned the power to maximum and walked out of the basement, listening as I heard the battery overload and your brother's screams fade to deafening silence. I can already tell you're feeling conflicted by this. One part of you is telling you to run and get away from me as quickly as possible. The other is saying thank you for finally getting rid of them. It doesn't matter which one you choose, however. I'm already making my way to your room. I know your mom isn't home, so that leaves me enough time to tell you what I really need to. By now, I've probably turned you around and hugged you tightly to my chest. By now, you've probably felt the tears stream off my face onto yours. By now, you've probably already heard me silently whisper, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.